Hello, and welcome to another episode of Transfer Pricing in the New Normal. I'm Andrew Fairfowl, partner in PwC Singapore, and I lead the transfer pricing practice. Now, in turbulent economic times, P&L volatility is a major concern for many companies who are managing margins to a transfer pricing policy. So in today's episode, we thought we'd discuss some of the issues that arise out of that and offer some thoughts on best practice. I'm joined for this discussion today by Yu Hui, Transfer Pricing Director with me here in Singapore, and Frank Debitz, who's the managing partner for our Asia Pacific Customs and Trade Network. Yu Hui, let me start with you and ask, what do we mean by managed margins in transfer pricing? And is this really an issue for everybody?
Thanks, Andrew. It refers to a target margin for limited risk operators that have to be achieved at the financial year end. It is an issue for taxpayers operating under centralized models and where a profit split model is adopted.
So why is it so difficult to hit a target margin?
It is a common practice to use budgeted and forecast figures to set transfer prices, and budget figures will never match actual figures. Things like standard costing assumptions, forecast sale price, volume mix often deviate from actual cost, price, and volume sold. So adjustments are needed to account for these variances.
So there's a lot of variables there going into the calculation. What happens if you get it wrong?
Well, you can make the transfer pricing adjustment in the accounts or in the tax returns, or you risk TP adjustments and penalties in a tax audit. But making such adjustments can create issues, particularly around indirect tax and custom duties.
Frank, so what is the indirect tax problem here?
Well, it's a good question, Andrew. I think the issue is when you declare a customs value, what you want to declare is the number that it says on the invoice. It's called the transaction value or the price paid or payable for the product. And if you change that through a retrospective transfer pricing adjustment, you're changing that price paid or payable. And under the customs law, you have to disclose it to customs. Now, that disclosure process can be cumbersome in itself, but what is worse is that it makes customs a little bit worried about whether the values were right in the first place, because nothing has changed, right? It's an import that happened a long time ago. So they might challenge the historic price, they might challenge the new price, they'll be looking to perhaps assess extra taxes or penalties, and they can go back 5 years. So you can build up quite a big liability if you're not careful.
I see. So there are some quite unpleasant technical consequences of getting this wrong. But Yu Hui, I suppose getting this right is more a question of process and management, is it?
Yep. So process improvement is key. What would help are more accurate forecasts and shorter planning cycles. Technology is likely to improve things over time with a digital supply chain where data is captured real time and monitoring can be done more frequently by machines.
So in the midst of what's clearly a very volatile year for everybody, what are the practical steps that people can be taking now?
For now, some simple measures would include more regular reviews. Do not wait till year end. Closer collaboration with supply chain, pricing, sales, and finance. Build better data visibility with automated triggers. And lastly, include this as a key business process with clear governance and responsibility.
I see, very clear. So Frank, if we can do all of that, does that solve the customs problems?
Solve is a big word. I think what it does, I mean, customs don't like frequent price changes either, because as far as they're concerned, they see the same product come in, same supply chain, all that stuff. So if you're changing the price on a regular basis, they're still going to have questions. But what it does do is it forces you to go and talk to customs. Because what you don't want them to do is to say, well, you can't use the invoice value. We're going to determine what you declare. So you're kind of forced to have the discussion with them and reach an agreement with them as to what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I think that is helpful because you don't get into the situation where you have retrospective transfer pricing changes that you need to deal with through a voluntary disclosure process.
So process and controls and conversations with customs, is this something, Yu Hui, that we're doing work with on clients at the moment?
Yes, absolutely. More and more clients are asking for help in this area. It's a key part of tax governance for multinationals.
Frank?
Yeah, the same here. And I think increasingly we're working with clients that have the discussions with customs up front to get them on board and understand what they're doing rather than wait until there's an audit or a problem in future. And that's something that a lot of clients are working with us to make happen proactively.
Yu Hui and Frank, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and insights on that with me today. So to summarize, transfer pricing true-ups and adjustments can be a real pain for multinationals. And the best way to deal with them is to avoid having them in the first place. And the way to do that is to make sure that your finance and transfer pricing processes are well aligned so that you can manage your margins on a regular basis throughout the course of the year. I hope you've enjoyed this session. We've enjoyed presenting it to you, and I look forward to joining you next time. Thank you and goodbye.